guys, welcome to this video where I get to share my favorite Agatha Christie books. Now, I started reading her books, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I have kind of declared myself a lover of Agatha Christie books, but not all of her books have been winners in my mind. Actually, some of her books have been, in my personal opinion, downright terrible. There's different reasons for that. Some of them I've enjoyed the reading experience, some of them I didn't enjoy the reading experience, but I enjoyed the ending of the book. Some of them I just, didn't like at all, and some I enjoyed the entire process. I loved the reading experience, I loved the reveal at the end, and I want to share those ones today. If you're not familiar with Agatha Christie, I think, now don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure she wrote 66 books. And some of them are short stories, so I don't know if it's like 66 books and short stories or how that works. But I probably have only read about a dozen of them, so I'm no expert. A dozen? I should have actually figured this out before, and before I filmed this, but instead we will use the power of technology and put up exactly how many Agatha Christie books I've read. So it's this number, which is much lower than 66, and yeah, so I thought it'd be fun to film a video sharing my favorite ones now, and then down the road maybe redo this video if this changes. If you're new to Agatha Christie, she sets up all her books in a similar way where you get introduced to all these different characters, usually less than 10 for the most part, and one of them is usually the person that gets murdered and one of them is usually the murderer. There are some exceptions, but that's kind of like a very broad outline of how her books work, and I love that. I love knowing that she has laid clues throughout the book, and if I was just smart enough I could figure it out. And I even love the fact that I'm not smart enough and I pretty much never figure it out. I still really love the reading process. I should have grabbed a book I recently finished of hers. It's called Endless Night. I feel like it deserves an honorable mention because I hated the reading experience. I thought it was really boring. If it was any other author, I probably would have quit the book, like DNF'd it. But it was Agatha Christie, so I persevered. And the ending was very surprising. I really liked the twist, really enjoyed the ending. But because I didn't enjoy the experience, I felt like I couldn't put it on as one of my favorites. But it's gonna go on here as an honorable mention. If you don't mind not having a clue what's going on, and getting surprised at the end and then realizing that she laid all these clues, then I would recommend checking out that book. Otherwise, these ones are my favorites. So she has a couple different detectives. She had Hercule Poirot that she wrote about, who is her most famous, Miss Marple, who's my favorite, and then a duo, Tommy and Tuppence. I actually haven't read any of the books with them in them, but I've heard that you have to read those ones in order, so I'm going to try to get them all and then read them in order. But I always say that Miss Marple is my favorite, and actually only 2 out of the 5 that I'm going to share here today are Miss Marple books, and the other ones are Poirot books. So when I was making this list, I was like, I'm kind of disappointed in myself for that reason. But anyway, let's get started here. I don't know which one I should start with. How about, okay, well, let's just go for the one everyone loves. This is Murder on the Orient Express. This is probably one of her 2 most famous ones. In this one, Poirot is on a train with a bunch of people and someone ends up murdered, and he has to figure it out before the train gets to their destination, I think, for whatever reason. I don't remember the details. This was one of my first Agatha Christie that I read, and I really did enjoy it. Honestly, like, Poirot kind of bothers me. I'm not a huge fan of his personality, but it's not enough that, like, I don't still just love the reading process. Yeah, so when I figured this one out, like, I didn't figure it out. When Agatha Christie told me at the end who did it, I was surprised, and I love that. I love being surprised and not knowing, and I still loved trying to figure it out. So yeah, someone dies on a train and Poirot needs to figure it out. Also, I'm just realizing I have paint all over my fingers from, if you watched my last reading vlog when I was painting my office here. Yeah, now I'm painting the other side of the wall, which is in our, like, I don't know what it is, kids playroom, all sorts of things room. Yeah, so there's gonna be paint on my hands for a bit. Okay, Next up, well, let's just do all the Perot ones. The next Perot one that I have here is the ABC Murders. So this one was a very creative idea, I guess, for a murderer. I don't really like calling murderers creative, but I guess I just did. So this murderer kills Mrs. Asher in Andover, Betty Barnard in Bexhill, and Sir Michael Clark in Churston. It says that right in the back. Hopefully that's not spoilers. But they kill people, you know, alphabetically down the row, and you wonder where they're going to end and who did it. And what's interesting to me about this book is you've got like a serial killer on your hands, which is very different from what Agatha Christie usually writes. But at the same time, you have a very small pool of suspects. So you know it has to be one of these, I don't know, it's like 5 people or something small like that. And none of them make sense. And then when it got to the end, once again, my mind was blown and I was like, really? Oh, how did I miss all that? Yeah, I always wanted to be like a spy or a detective, but these books make me realize that I am terrible at this. I will just read about it and enjoy the reading process and never be a private investigator or anything like that. These are in no particular order, because this next one is third on the list here, but is actually, I'm pretty sure it will go down as my very favorite Agatha Christie, at least so far it is. And that is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Once again, this is another Perot one, so this is my third out of the 3 Perot I was going to share. This is one that the reveal blew my mind. I don't know how people see the endings coming, because I sure did not, especially in this one. So in this one, I don't even remember who the guy that got murdered is Roger Ackroyd. He knew that the woman he loved had been harboring a guilty secret. She poisoned her first husband, and yesterday she killed herself. And then for some reason, Roger Ackroyd dies. So there's like this like deep secret and like chain of events that's going on here. Sorry about the brightness here. The sun does not know what it's doing today. Yeah, so this is like a deep chain of events, and like once again, we don't have that many suspects, but when it told us who did it, I was just mind blown. Also, apparently my face is being blown because this is so bright. So I think this was probably, I don't know, I'd say like the 5th or 7th Agatha Christie book I ever read. I read it with a classics book club that I used to have, and as soon as I read it, it was my absolute favorite of hers, and it's staying in that spot because I just really like this one. Yeah, definitely my favorite. Okay, my next one, I was realizing as I was going to grab my favorites, I don't even own this one. I have tried to buy it a few times, and every time I go to buy it, it's out of stock. And I thought I had bought it last time, but apparently I didn't get it fast enough. So eventually I will own this one. This was my very first Miss Marple book that I read, I believe, and that is The Moving Finger. Now, I love Miss Marple because she is like literally the little old woman sitting in the corner knitting. Like, when I mean literally, I'm not the person that doesn't know how to use the term literally. Like, that is actually what she does for at least one scene in all of the books, I think. So in The Moving Finger, is this one, I don't know if it's set in her small town. She hails from a little small village in England, and often she just happens to be visiting so-and-so who lives in this village that a murder takes place. Like, honestly, I haven't read all of her books, but I wouldn't be surprised if in like the last one in the series of Miss Marple, she was the murderer, because she's always there. But in The Moving Finger, we have a woman that ends up dead, and you know it's one of the few people in the village that, you know, were available at the time or kind of have something against her. And once again, mind blown, didn't see it coming. I'm a terrible detective, but yeah, that is going down as one of my favorites, and I'm not sure if it's going to stay as one of my favorites because it was one of the first I read of hers. I would love to reread that one because I want to find out if it would still stay as one of my favorite Agatha Christie, or if I was just so new to her that it seemed really good. Okay, so I have one more to share here of my favorite Agatha Christie, but then after that I'm going to share 2 books that I would recommend reading if you like Agatha Christie, so stick around. The last one I'm going to share that is a favorite is one I read in December, and that is A Murder is Announced. And I really like, because this is another Miss Marple one, I don't know, maybe it's all of Agatha Christie's books, but they're generally all set in like small town or small village England, and this one is no exception. I am not going to have fun piecing this together after I need to edit this because the sun is just not sure what it's doing here. Anyway, so this takes place in like a small village, and you know, you've always got all these curious, nosy people, and therefore any of them could have done it for any number of reasons. But in this one, a murder announcement is made in the newspaper, and everyone gets the newspaper and reads this announcement, and they're all curious as to what's going to happen. Originally, everyone thinks that the place it's going to take place is this lady's house. Little Paddocks is what the house or the place is called. They think that she is just putting on, you know, like one of those fake murders, and everyone feels like, oh, they weren't invited, so they make up excuses to show up that evening. And like, oh, I don't know, just little old people or small town people, and they're like random little excuses for showing up on someone's doorstep when you know something's going to happen. That just cracked me up. So they all show up there that one evening when this murder is supposed to take place, and it does take place. And then, you know, it's one of those people that was in the room that did it. And once again, this one just like totally stumped me, blew me out of the water. And I do feel like I was picking up on some of the clues, but I wasn't stitching them together, so it didn't dawn on me who did it. And I was kind of beating myself up after, because I was like, if there was ever a book that I should have gotten it, this was it, because I was catching on to some of these things. And yeah, but I didn't get it. Oh, plus I also just remembered I had like a doggy-eared a little spot here. I was talking about how, you know, sometimes a person wants to lend you a book, and this person says, if anyone is really determined to lend you a book, you can never get out of it. I feel like that sometimes if I have a book that I really want someone to read, I just like keep pushing it on them until they feel really guilty and they have to read it. Yeah, so those were my favorite Agatha Christie books. I am excited that I have so many more of hers to read yet. Like, I don't even think, whatever that magical number was of how many books I have read of hers, I don't think I've even read a third of the books. So I have lots more to read. I kind of try to do about one a month. Sometimes I miss a month, but I try not to do more than that because I don't want them all jumbling up in my mind. But I should have a few years worth left of monthly Agatha Christie books. And if I find some more good ones, I will do an update to this video down the road. But if you like Agatha Christie, I have 2 recommendations. One is technically not really a recommendation because I haven't actually read the book. So maybe I'll start with the one that I can recommend. Earlier this month, I read Aggie Morton, Mystery Queen. This is a middle grade book. Sorry, it's a library copy, so there's like a glare. This is The Body Under the Piano. So this is a series. This is book 1, and so far only book 2 is out yet. It's based off of Agatha Christie. So her name is Aggie Morton, or Agatha Morton. She befriends this new boy to town. His name is Hector Perot. I don't. It's obviously Hercule Poirot, but not quite, and I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah, and she's got an auntie, or it's her grandma. Her name is Granny Jane, which is Miss Marple, and she's like always sitting there knitting. This was I not only liked it because I like Agatha Christie and Miss Marple and all that, but it was written with humor, and I really liked just the voice that the author wrote with. So I would recommend checking out this series, at least book 1 so far. I want to read book 2 as soon as possible. And then the second book is one that I have not read yet, but that is, oh, what is it called now? Once again, magic of editing. This book here, it is about, it's a fiction look at what possibly happened when Agatha Christie went missing. So back in, I think in the 50s at some point, she went missing for 11 days. And when she came back, she had amnesia and never told anyone where she was. Whether or not she did have amnesia, no one knows, right? But there was a Netflix show a few years ago that talked about maybe where she was. And this book is a fiction look on maybe where she was. That just came out at the end of December. And so I'm on the list from the library. Someone on my Patreon said they're like 25 pages in and are already predicting it to be a 5-star book. Hopefully that continues. I don't know for sure if it's a good book, but I like the idea of it. So I would recommend checking it out. And if you keep watching my videos, hopefully I can get it from the library soon and tell you whether or not it's actually worth reading. But yeah, I like all things Agatha Christie. So if you have more recommendations for me, I mean, I love Sherlock. Actually, I think I actually like Sherlock more than Agatha Christie, but I've already read all the Sherlock. So if you have any more recommendations kind of in those veins, I would love to hear them. I'm always looking for more good mystery books, but I love it when there's kind of some breadcrumbs left and you can actually figure it out, or at least if you were smarter than me, figure it out. Those are my favorites. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy some Agatha Christie now.